Welcome to Her Drive, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the journeys of women who are driving their lives, businesses, and missions forward with heart, grit, and grace. I'm your host, Cynthia Crumblett, intimacy coach, energy alchemist, and lifelong student of transformation. Each episode is a candid conversation designed to inspire your personal growth and fuel your own drive toward a life of purpose, pleasure, and power. Today, I'm joined by a woman who exemplifies what it means to lead in both skill and soul. Raquel Merlini is a registered nurse and a certified aesthetic nurse specialist with over 14 years of experience in the plastics and aesthetic industry. She's the founder of Our Skin Aesthetic, where beauty meets integrity and clients are treated with compassion, honesty, and care. Raquel's expertise in injectable skincare and laser technologies is only part of what makes her remarkable, and I'm excited to dive into all of the things that are within her amazing long bio that make Raquel Raquel. So without further ado, hi Raquel, welcome to Her Drive.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm super excited to dive into how you came to be the person that you are, what brought you into the aesthetics industry, and a bit of like your personal story, growth, and how other women who are absorbing this beautiful podcast can really use your wisdom and information to help them perhaps redefine beauty from the inside out.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for the introduction. And I think really what has drawn me to being so blessed to be on your podcast is the fact that when I was searching you, you are intuitive and it is about empowering women and it is about growth. And I think as an aging female myself, we often think, oh my goodness, life is over. I'm in my 50s. What am I going to do? And really, I have probably spent the last decade and some years in reinventing myself also. So, my story a little bit. I started in cosmetics when I was very young. I was model of the year. I was a product specialist for an automotive company. I did auto shows and I ended up getting married very young, and I had two amazing children. And I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, kind of the woman behind the scenes. My ex-husband had a company, and that was just how our dynamics worked for us. And then we did two extreme home makeovers. So we were on ABC twice, and the crash of 2008 happened, and we basically lost everything. So we had to regroup. And at the time, I had not had a formal education. And it was really, I think, frustrating because there wasn't anything that I could really do to help our circumstances at the time. And we ended up relocating to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I met an amazing group of women down there. I joined a Bible study, and one of the days, I was like, "What am I going to do with my life? I'm in my 30s." And someone said, "It sounds like you've always kind of been in the cosmetics industry." And I was like, "Oh yeah, ding, that's true." I mean, I was making face masks at sleepovers, you know, when we were in middle school. I was that girl. So, but I was a tomboy too. So, I ended up at aesthetics school and I became an esthetician. And aesthetics put me on my journey to where I am now. And we ended up relocating to Michigan. I went through a horrible divorce, and while I was trying to figure all of that out, my current physician, who was the chief of plastic surgery for a prominent hospital here in Detroit, said to me, "What is it that you're going to school for?" And I said, "I'm 38. I'm not really quite sure. Maybe psychology. I just like helping people." And he said, "Coupled with your esthetician license, would you consider nursing school?" And I was kind of like, "Oh my goodness, school at 38? Like, how am I going to do this?" And I had two teenagers at the time. And then I started thinking, this is a lot of money. So to keep up with yourself, and what better way for me to continue to help other women grow. So I ended up going to nursing school at 38, and that just kind of put me on my journey of becoming an aesthetic nurse.
Wow, what a beautiful kind of overview of the journey that you've been on that brought you into the industry and the challenges it sounds like you've overcome. Do you notice that the women that come in to see you have similar, maybe thought patterns, belief systems, or challenges that they go through that they may share in office?
Yes, I feel so after I left my previous practice and opened my own practice. Um, it was really important to me to make sure that I created a safe place for not only other providers and my coworkers, but also a safe place for my patients, right? I think as women, we're many things to many different people. We're wives, mothers, caregivers. Um, and we give a lot to other people in our life, and oftentimes our own um, we put ourselves on the back burner. So for me, it's really important in the treatment room that I'm connecting with the patient, not just from an aesthetics and beauty portion, but also in either sharing my life experience or really being a good listener. That's something that I probably wasn't when I was younger. It would be a weakness, and something I've worked very, very hard on is that I think that people want to be heard and validated, and I just work really hard in the treatment room to make sure that I have that connection. And people share things, again, being a wife and especially in the current circumstances of the world's ever changing. I think a lot of things have changed since COVID. Also, being a parent of children in today's society with social media and instant gratification and accountability. So, I think oftentimes they share things with me that perhaps they wouldn't even share with a best friend. So I think that that's important. I think it's a part of the success of our skin and my business.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And something that you touched on that is something I don't know how do I say this. I'm always self-analyzing how I am engaging with the outside world, and one of those things that I consider a part of the outside world is social media, which you touched on, and ways in which I've observed social media shift most recently. We all have is through like the AI woman, right? And
Right.
it's like I look at these AI women, girls, um, and it's just so interesting to see how they've evolved and they continue to evolve to really embody what is, in some ways, very believable, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm curious how, if you have any thoughts around how that might be driving beauty standards, certain practices of practitioners. What is a way to help? So it's kind of feeding into a bigger question, I guess. Also, stop there. Like, what are your thoughts on how they're impacting aesthetics?
Yes. Well, yesterday I just had a patient come in and they were talking about the new Skims product and this face strap, and if she sleeps in it, is it going to help? And I'm like, well, help what? I mean, I come from a plastic surgery world, so post surge we would put a facial strap on because of swelling and stretching those tissues and all of that that goes with the healing process. you know I personally, and I don't like to knock other products or other things, but I don't think that sleeping in a strap is gonna help with the jawline. I think actually it impedes lymphatic drainage. So I think that there's a lot of influencing going on. But you have to look at what the motive is, right? Like they're there to sell something. So uh I do feel that the AI woman, everybody's got airbrushed skin. That's not reality. We have pores. Sometimes we have residual scars or, things that have occurred throughout our lifetime. And even again, as an aging female, I have lines on my face. I'm not always happy about them, but some of them I've definitely earned and I'm proud of. So I do think that there's an unrealistic expectation. Jaw lines, I think that people are editing photos and they're not realistic expectations. So I think that there is a lack of transparency happening on social media. And it can, it can make you feel bad about yourself. And, touch on those vulnerabilities and insecurities that I think we already all have.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful response. I think it's just it's maybe the latest version of what was maybe once like the magazine, right? Magazines have kind of fallen off quite a bit more, so things are just migrating in different ways. But now there's this advanced technology that can be used to manipulate and incentivize sales for others. And I'm 35, and we mentioned like aging. There's things that I've noticed in myself over the years. I'm like, oh, okay, this is changing my face. This is different, and have had, Dysport and a few like laser treatments. But there just seems to be so many different options out there. Like you had mentioned this Skims product that is like a facial strap. And there's like I don't need to get into the names of all these different things out there. But if
Mhm.
someone is looking to really start to move into this space and wants to go to a trusted uh, practitioner, what would be something that they should look for any type of aesthetic treatment, whether it's injections or actually into the more extremes, which is like a surgical route?
So I feel that when I'm doing some of these podcasts or even teaching, the biggest thing is assessment, sitting down with your patient and again, listening, hearing. Number one, you're not just listening for what their goal is, but I think you also have to listen. What is their mental status? Why are they here? And where are they at emotionally? Are they making a clear decision, or is it emotional decision based upon a breakup or a divorce or we all have those scars from childhood that can be internal or external that they're looking to possibly try to alter. So I think uh, it's also important as a patient to know that you're interviewing your provider, right? So yes, you are going in for a service, but it's really important to ask questions. I think that people can feel foolish or maybe not knowledgeable. I think that they can be intimidated by um, someone who maybe seems in a higher position than they are. And I think that you have to ask those questions. Um, what are your credentials? What is your experience? How long have you been practicing? What products do you use? Are they real products? Are they from the manufacturers? Because there's a lot of fake products, unfortunately, that are going on, and injectors who are not licensed, who are injecting. So, I think that's important for patients to question. Another big, huge factor is price. When you're price driven, you have to think, I mean, I don't mind shopping at TJ Maxx. I get some really good finds there. However, I also know that if I go into TJ Maxx, it's not going to be the same quality if I go into Neiman's or Saks or a brand name store, right? So if you're looking at Groupon and you're shopping for those prices, why are those prices what they are? Typically, it's somebody who is not experienced, or they're not really using products that are legitimate products. So did I kind of, because I can get on a whole tangent. So you might have to reel me in, Cynthia, because I'm very passionate from patient standpoint, because I've seen patients who have spent money and not had great results, and hopefully not too much damage has occurred from those results.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to reel you in any way. I'm happy to follow your passionate flame here, and I do think it's important that we have someone who's an advocate for being our own embodied, empowered person when making these choices, any choice in life, but in this particular area, yeah, I think many are going in and they're trusting this person to be of integrity, to be knowing what they're doing, where they should properly, especially with injections, like where to actually put this injection, not too much or not too little. And it's been interesting for me just observing more like the celebrity out there, this not celebrity specifically, but like celebrity aestheticians or surgeons, and see who has what look like to me like really beautiful, flattering results, and where others, I'm like, wow, all of their patients look the same. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're young. I have a few years on you, but one of the conversations recently I just had with some peers is, in the 90s, you had an array of models, right? You had Naomi Campbell, you had Cindy Crawford, you had Kate Moss, you had Claudia Schiffer, and they all looked very different. And now I feel like we're in a world of, and if you have to cut names out, but we're everybody wants to look the same. Not everybody can be the Kardashians. So I feel like it's really doing a disservice. Here in Michigan, we had one physician. We have a huge Middle Eastern population, also a large Italian population, and a Jewish population. And everybody was going to the same physician in the late 90s for a rhinoplasty. I can pinpoint every single patient who has gone to that doctor because they all have a scooped out ski slope nose, and it doesn't keep in tradition with your own heritage, your own ethnicity, right? And so I do think that there isn't a cookie cutter one approach that everybody's supposed to look the same. I mean, if you would have taken Madonna's gap between her teeth, would she be as sexy? You know, David Bowie with the hitch, in his face, would he be as attractive? I'm not quite sure. We've all seen the split screens where they put the right side of the face to the right side, and they're not as attractive. So those little tiny nuances that keep our individuality, I think, is so important. The older I'm getting, I look at certain things with people and I'm like, I don't want to change that. That's kind of who makes you who you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really beautiful.
Cynthia, can you hold? I just have to let my bulldog in before she crashes through this screen.
Mhm.
Hello, you sassy. Come on, get your fanny in here. Okay. The sun started to hit my back porch and I'm home today, so sorry about that.
Perfect. Yes, perfect. I love it. It's life being lived. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of the sun and the heat and all of that, what is your position on the sun and what we should be doing in our approach to it? Because there's different languaging and thoughts out there now that seed oils are the reason that we get sunburnt, and that's the cause of it. So some people now are no longer wearing sunblock, or they're just wearing like a zinc, where others are going, far on the spectrum of our more chemical based, possibly carcinogenic products. But I imagine there's got to be like some middle of the road there. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I don't think sun's the enemy. So you're kind of getting me at a little bit of a transitional phase in my practice. Some of the research that I've seen, I mean, sun is so good for you in a lot of health um instances. Up here in Michigan, we all get sick once the fall comes. It's because we don't have the sun, which lacks then vitamin D. They're even saying that our immune systems are not as great because of that lack of that vitamin D. So, the sun also kills bacteria. It can, help with skin issues too. So, do I think that the sun is an enemy? No. Do I think that you still need to be responsible and cautious? I'm still putting a sunblock on every single day myself. I've seen some of those horrific Instagram things where they're spraying the can and they're lighting it and saying that they are we are putting carcinogens on our skin. So I think my belief is whatever your preference is, you know, whether you want to be holistic and go straight zinc, you want to stay out of the sun and just wear a hat. I think we have to watch for skin cancer. That's really important. I've always kept my face covered up just because I didn't want to get lines. I saw what sun damage did when I was working for Clinique at 18 and taking people's driver's license, and said I didn't want to look like that. But I do think that the sun shouldn't be as villainized as it is. A lot of red light therapy is equivalent to some of the sun. And also sitting in your office space, your UV lights that were under all day long, they are ultraviolet rays that are also doing damage. So I think that it should always be some type of prevention. I encourage people, go to your dermatologist, get your skin checks also, because you can have hidden uh, melanomas anywhere, or basal cell. So that's important. But yeah, I'm not really quite sure if I answered your question. I do believe in sunblock.
Sure, sure. That makes perfect sense. And it's always fun to be in that state of transition and I think that's a sign of, cognitive flexibility and actually higher levels of intelligence where we can take in new information and maybe shift our positions on certain things. And I love that, that you have the position that you do. It's really makes so much sense to me. And I'm kind of on that same space with you. Earlier, you had mentioned um, kind of different trends, but this was more so in the product space, right? We were talking about your patient that came in and was like wondering if they should buy this like face sling thing. Um, do you have any excitement around like future treatments, trends, innovations in the space of aesthetic medicine that we as consumers, or even if there's some practitioners that are listening to this episode, can tune into and look out for?
It's a little controversial. So I will say I do believe in regenerative medicine, and I do believe in a lot of the peptides. Unfortunately, the FDA, they're not always approved, or you can use them off label. But if I go back, I've been injecting neurotoxin since, oh my goodness. Well, I've been receiving it as a patient for about 28 years, and I've been injecting for about 14 years. So when I first started injecting Botox, it was only on label for the glabella between the brows, the 11s. We were injecting the forehead and the crow's feet, and it was off label at the time. So if I have to say what I'm really excited about is the peptides, hoping that there will be a little bit more availability with those. And I am very excited about some of the exosomes and the platelet-derived growth factors that are available.
So, for those who don't know kind of the difference between those three, could you break them down for us more in like a layman's terminology?
Yeah, so exosomes are like little nano-sized extracellular vesicles. Meaning that they will enhance the benefits of a treatment. Okay, exosomes can be derived from a viable fetus that was maybe grown in a petri dish, and then they took those cells and made a product with it. PRP, which we can go ahead and inject that. That's derived, it's your own body. We call it liquid gold. We're going to take your blood, we put it in a centrifuge, and then we spin it, and you end up with the platelets, which are rich in your own growth factors. So that comes from you physically. One of the things I was super excited is I've got Easy Gel, so we can take it from the PRP, which is more of that liquid gold, to more of a filler form, and we can inject it underneath the eyes, or in other areas, and you're going to get some nice collagen stimulation, better elasticity, and lighter, brighter skin too. And then the PDG, PDGF, your platelet-derived growth factor. Um, there's a couple of different brands on, and it's FDA approved for topical because, again, that's a platelet derived growth factor. You can apply it topically. It's beautiful after a microneedling or a laser treatment. It will help your healing a little faster. Hoping eventually that the FDA will allow us to inject it. I do think that the regeneration or the regenerative properties of it are going to be beautiful. Skin elasticity, collagen, all of those beautiful things that your skin will glow with. So I'm really excited about what's coming on the horizon. I think Botox was used medically far before for people who had migraines, and then we found that it ended up relaxing muscles and it made its way to a wrinkle relaxer, made its way into the treatment room. So I'm really hoping that regenerative medicine is going to follow suit and will be more available in the next coming years. We couldn't be in a better time as aging females with the technology that's becoming available.
Yeah, yeah, I love that so much. And thank you for that breakdown. And could you walk us through maybe with the technology and access that we have now, maybe what you would recommend for each decade of woman out there, adult
Yeah.
woman? Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I love that question. I haven't been asked that in a while. I firmly believe, regardless of whether you want to stay a little more holistic and natural, is really good skincare. So if you start with really good skincare, and again, I came from a clinic background, so I learned system selling, and it was 4 or 5 products. But I think that we're all very, very busy women, and men, and if it becomes a job and you've got to put on 5 products, I mean, I have a plethora. I can have any product in my office and they're all fabulous. However, if it becomes a job for me, I'm not going to do it. So if you just got a simple routine, and that would consist of, you have to always remember before you go to bed at night, you want to put your treatment products on because that's when your body is resting and healing. So, and then in the morning, just washing your face and putting on your product, which I'll segue back to in a second. I think in your 20s, the most important things you can do is watch your exposure to sun, environmental hazards, vaping, smoking, alcohol. And I'm not going to be the fun police. When my patients are in, I'm like, listen, you have to live a little. Life is very, very short, but everything in moderation. Also, doing that good skincare, meaning treatment room at home. Everybody should have a retinol of some sort because you want to exfoliate that skin, get that cell turnover rate. I love a vitamin C, which is easy, even if you want to do some type of a combination treatment, and some type of a hydrator. And you're in Texas, I'm in Detroit. I have a little more seasonal. We get really super dry in the winter time, a little more humidity in the summertime. I do think that you need to change your products seasonally. The one biggest organ on our body is our skin, so it's constantly changing. So in your 20s, just really good skincare, removing your makeup before you go to bed at night too, right? I mean, I don't care how tipsy you are. If the floor is moving, you've got to make your way to the sink and wash your face somehow. Then when you get into your 30s, we're starting to get some of that, the fine lines, the wrinkles. When we make a face or an expression, we have dynamic lines, right? Like when you smile, you're going to see the crow's feet. You're going to start to see these secondary smile lines, maybe a little bit on the forehead. We want to stop that before it gets deeper because once it becomes a static line, and a static line is after you raise your brows and you rest and you end up still having those lines in those areas, that now is a static line. That's when you start to get into trouble. You're going to start seeing that in your 30s. Some people might have it in their 20s, but 30s is really when the skin's going to start to break down a little bit. So that's when you're going to want to make your way into your treatment room and work with an esthetician. Again, doing some chemical peels, some dermaplanes, maybe some microneedling. I love microneedling. I can't talk enough about it because it's seasonal, or it's not seasonal. You can do it all year round, which is great. And it doesn't matter if you have sun exposure or not. Whereas if you get into the lasers and you're doing resurfacing, then you can't have a tan and you can't even have self tan on either. So that's really important to know. So your 30s starting to maybe do a little bit of Botox. And I don't know, maybe it's my age. I'm getting a little more conservative as I'm getting older. I believe that less is more, or perhaps it's also the industry where I'm seeing that patients are starting to look a little more like caricatures as opposed to real people. And less is more. You don't have to get into building up these cheeks and doing all of that and looking like Maleficent to get lift. It's just supposed to be natural. Again, stimulating that collagen through your microneedling, your lasers. But you put a little bit of baby Botox, I call it, little sprinkle. Let's get those lines so that you can still move and you can still animate. But we just want to prevent those dynamic lines from becoming a static line. And then when you're getting into your 40s, so this is when I'm starting to talk with my patients that it's really important for every decade of life, we start to lose 1 syringe of volume. So if you're in your 30s, you've already lost about 1 ml. In your 20s, or I'm sorry, in your 30s, you've lost about two. 40s, you're 3, and about 50s, you're about 4 or 5. That's just replacing the volume because we go through bone remodeling, we go through skin descent, and then we start to have skin laxity issues also. So in your 40s and 50s, hopefully you've done your due diligence and some of the things that I'm speaking about. However, my age, a lot of women didn't talk about, they were gatekeeping, right? They were getting treatments and they weren't sharing. The younger generation, everything's all over the place, and sometimes they're oversharers, which is great because you have that knowledge and you can say, okay, let me do a little bit of prevention. But people get really frightened because they're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do, 3, 4, 5 syringes of filler. And unfortunately, we all see the bad jobs. We don't see the good, the patients who have received good treatment and look just rested or natural. It's very easy to pick out the ones who either had a Groupon or went to somebody who didn't know what they were doing. So how I relate it to my patients is five uh 5 syringes of filler is 1 teaspoon. So if you cook, look at what a teaspoon looks like, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon. 5 syringes to fill a teaspoon is really not that much. Another way to explain it is a packet of ketchup. It takes 10 syringes to fill a packet of ketchup. So you're really not going to look overdone if you are in the hands of a responsible injector and provider. And then when you're in your 60s and 70s, and I still have patients who are in their 80s, I love my women who have a tremendous amount of wisdom and experience, and they still want to feel good about themselves. But I really think if you can create a good foundation in your 20s with skincare and maybe a little bit of treatment room, and then your 30s, just being maybe a little bit more I don't want to say aggressive, but a little bit more cognizant of taking care of the exterior of your skin and through either your neuromodulators, your a little bit of filler, and then good skincare, both at home and in the treatment room.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I appreciate that breakdown. And
That
do
was a
you
little
think
long-winded. I'm sorry.
no apologies. It was great information, and that's what we're here for is to ingest your what you have to share with us. So, um, do you? Mhm. This podcast is really encouraging self-reflection, expansion, and growth in whatever way that looks for listenership. And sometimes I like to kind of encourage curiosity, right? And like I said, reflection. So how would someone know if they have, because you said you when someone's assessing their practitioner, their aesthetic nurse or whomever they are choosing to see, that one of the things they would do is like be checking in on them, and then the practitioner would then be kind of assessing their mental state, right? So, if this is a very long winded way of getting to the question, but I want to state it the right way. Um, so, I'll put it this way, if I am coming into your office and I am wanting to have some sort of treatment, I'm at Our Skin Aesthetics, and how would I, why am I struggling with this question? The question, the question is, how could I do some inner work to know if I'm just making if I'm making an emotional choice that is based on temporary emotions, or if I'm making a choice that is more deep rooted and it's actually aligned with longevity goals rather than something that might just be an insecurity that is an external force. Does that question make sense?
In a way, are you asking me as a provider, or are you asking like from a patient's perspective?
I think I'm asking, actually, I think I'm asking both. So, how would you
Yeah.
know if a person is making that decision from that place?
Well, I can use two quick examples. I had a beautiful, accomplished African American female sitting in my chair, and she was an attorney, and I mean, she was gorgeous, legs that went on for days, and I'm just sitting there looking at her skin was so luminous and so beautiful. And she said to me, "So, I'm here today for a jawline." And I'm looking at her and I'm like, "Okay, well, you're 34, 35." And I said, "Well, what is it that you don't like about your jawline?" And she said to me, "Well, my face is really round and I feel like I have a baby face." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, you do have a round face." I said, "But I will also tell you, I have to put my mom hat on for a second." I go, "That baby face is going to pay off as you age." Right. So that extra little bit of fat is gonna give you beautiful bone structure while you're aging. And and so she looked at me and she said, and I could just tell her thoughts went somewhere. And so I just paused, and I wanted her to gather where it was that she was going. And then she said to me, "I can't find anyone to date. And I just think if I have this snatched jawline that I'm looking on Instagram and all of these girls have, that, you know, perhaps somebody will want to date me and I'll have better chances because I'll look like, the people that are on Instagram that, all the guys are following." And so I looked at her and I said, "Oh, geez. Okay, we've all had that moment, right? I mean, there's moments I would like to look like somebody else myself and think that maybe that's going to make me happier." So I listened and I said, "Okay, I don't know if this is really going to be a good choice for today." So I said to her, "You're gorgeous. And I'm not going to be a provider for a minute. I'm going to be a girlfriend or a parent. And I assure you, there is no gentleman that is sitting across from you and saying, 'I want to procreate with this woman because she has this incredible jawline.'" And I said, and she looked at me and she kind of chuckled, and I said, "And I'm not trying to minimize your feelings, right? Because we all have those insecurities and those feelings. So I never want to minimize what she was feeling. But I said, you're gorgeous and you're accomplished. And there's so many women that would love to be in your position. Like, you have your whole future ahead of you. Your skin is gorgeous and bright and shiny, and you're tall. And, I'm short. I'd love to be taller." And I said, "I could do this for you, but it's going to cost you between five to $7,000." And I said, "I would want to make sure that you were doing this for the right reasons." And I said, "So I'm not really comfortable treating today, but what we can do is we'll have the consultation. We'll mark you, we'll talk through it. I'll explain the process. And then if you want to schedule, you can go ahead and schedule, but I'd like you to come back on another day." And she was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "And as you're thinking about it, I would think about student loans, a vacation, and maybe even talking to a good therapist." And she started laughing. She goes, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." I said, "You're fabulous. Go home, have a good time, date. Don't be so hard on yourself. So I think, if you spend time with the patient and you really listen to them and you kind of dissect through, you can see where their mental status is at the time. I'm in the industry because I really love what I do and I love my patients, and my staff is remarkable. Like, they are my soul every single day going to the office. So for me, I've never really looked at being in the industry to make money. I mean, somebody else would have taken her money, ran, and said, "That's it." But I I want people to make choices because of the right decision and the right choice for them. And I felt that that wasn't the right choice for her at that moment, and that she was making an emotional decision and trying to mask something else that was going on. So I guess from my standpoint, again, being a provider, I think there's a responsibility. And I think that there's really a lack of responsibility happening in the industry right now, because it is a very lucrative industry. That's why a lot of people are wanting to get out of general medicine and hop into aesthetics, because it's not insurance based, it's concierge. People are coming in and they're spending cash. But I still look at it as medicine and assessing my patient. And, you want to make sure that your patient's in the right frame of mind. We all have those moments. I mean, after my divorce, I would have loved to have looked like anybody else, you know, um, because I was on my knees at that point in time. So, and you rebuild. And I was really lucky and blessed to have people along the way that reached back and guided me and helped me along. So, if I can do that for other women, I think that's really important to me. I'm going to
Yeah,
try
that's
to say that without crying. Today's
yeah.
an emotional day for me. So,
Yeah, we can hold space for all the emotion.
yeah, I think that we need to be a tribe. It's women aren't always nice to other women. And I just think that if we all kind of banded together a little bit more, we'd be so powerful. So if I can do that in my treatment room and make someone walk away feeling a little bit better with the minimal expense, then so be it. Because there's those cases that, they are in a good frame of mind and they just are aging, and we have to lift and relax and treat skin.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I love hearing your ethics around this space that, as you said, is a kind of a money grab in many ways. So I just want to pause and applaud you in that space. And yeah, I think like you and many, and maybe almost all the women listening to this show, I've struggled with my own form of like identity, wanting to look like someone else, or maybe same thing, like maybe if I looked like this or that, or reshape my body in this way, then somebody would want to love me, because right now all these clowns keep showing up, right? Why are they mistreating me? Right. So and it's not that at all. Oh gosh, but I'm really just so honored to have shared this time with you. And um, I read that you also have a pay it forward scholarship for single
Mhm.
mothers and women for who are kind trying to overcome some personal adversity. So I'd love to hear about that as well before we start to close out.
Yeah, so I created the Raquel Merlini Pay It Forward Scholarship because, like I said, I went to school at 38, and I didn't have an education. And I think that education is power, and it's freedom, and it provides choices for you. And I think that people stay in situations that, I'm sorry, hold on. This is not menopause. It's terrible. Um, I think people stay in situations that are not always good for them. And just give me a second. So I created this scholarship because I wanted women to have an opportunity that, and the stipulation is you have to be either a single mom, whether it's divorce or whether you didn't get married, but you are wanting to alter your life and its course. And the scholarship just helps provide somebody with that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. So, so, so beautiful. Yeah, to your point, a lot of us do stay in spaces and places far beyond what we needed to in order to learn the lesson, right? And I know in my personal travels through this lifetime, there's been so many angels that have been
Yes.
with me and support and blessed me both in the etheric realm and here in human form. And it sounds like this is a beautiful scholarship that is angelically blessing those who have the honor of being awarded with that scholarship. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if each one could reach back and teach one and pull them forward, the world would definitely be a much better and a stronger place. So, hopefully the scholarship is encouraging. I love when I have the opportunity to read the applicant's story and then narrow it down and select because I want to give it to all. I always have this dream I'm going to win the lotto and then I'm going to dedicate a day to domestic violence or women starting over where I can just do some type of a full day of treatment that, can help them feel great to get into the workplace too, right? Again, that goes back to as women, we give a lot to others and oftentimes neglect ourselves. So, yeah, it's a good scholarship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just feel these powerful, just like a waterfall of tingles coming over my whole body as you were sharing that. And there's so much emotion in the amount of energy, the output, the pouring out that we give. So if you could give women some advice around pouring into themselves, what would that look like or sound like?
Yeah, I think that we are under the impression that it's selfish to take care of our own self first. And I always think of the airplane scenario that, if something's happening, you're supposed to grab the mask and put it on so that you can help others around you. And I think that you need to carve out time for and space for yourself. And whether it's 10 minutes, going on a walk, or, I'm still struggling with meditation. Hopefully, one day I will be able to do it. But meditating, or even if it's just getting together with a girlfriend, and having a glass of wine or a mocktail and sharing time so that you don't feel alone. But it's just making yourself the priority, I think is really, really valuable and something I know I didn't learn until my 40s because I was so busy pouring into other people that I was left in. And you look at yourself and you don't even recognize who you are anymore. So I think my biggest advice would just be whatever it looks like to you, be good to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I hear you very loud. And it's a conversation I've had with my mother quite often, who is the definition of giving,
Yeah.
right? Right. And I perpetually say to her, it's time for you to give to yourself and say no to others. Your identity
Yeah.
is giver. How do you shift that? So, and there's nothing wrong with giving, but I think again it's another societal condition that so many of us are trying to break and show other women and beings that it's okay to pour into your cup first and allow the abundance. And it's such a beautiful imagery, right? But it's actually the truth. Like the more we can pour into ourselves, you just overflow with this nectar of life that can then just pour on to others. And it seems like Raquel, that is absolutely what you're doing with your life and with those that get to come and be with you.
Trying, like you said, it's always a work in progress, right? Like learning to say no and all of those key factors. But I think the great thing is we have this life and we can constantly learn. be life learners, right? And learn from experiences like this and speaking with other people. So continuing that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Raquel, if you could go back in time and give a younger you some words of wisdom, to what age would you travel and what would you say?
Oh, you're good. um, Trust my instincts. I think sometimes as women too, we're, you know, uh, judgmental of our own self, like, oh, am I just having a bad day, am I crazy, or maybe I'm overreacting, and that person really does have my best interest. But if you get that visceral feeling where like something is not right, um typically that's probably your intuition is correct. So I think my younger self, I would have trusted my own instincts and my own intuition a little better. There's not much I would ever change, even my real low valleys and low points. I wouldn't change those because I'm who I am, but I just wish that I would have trusted myself a little bit more.
Yeah. Here, here. I understand. Yeah, the women's intuition is so powerful and strong. Again, it's another thing that has been encouraged for us to be disconnected from. But I believe in the renaissance of women and femininity. Um, and the power of intuition coming back online for all of us and us showing again others this is how you do it and how you walk with intuition. And it starts with even little small things, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
it talks to me all the time. I'm like, oh, so I always flag when I don't I flag when I don't listen to my intuition and it was correct, and I'm like, okay, see, your intuition was correct here,
Right.
right? And as
Right.
someone who is a survivor of a terribly abusive dynamic relationship, there were so many times where, like you were saying, everything was there. My intuition was speaking to me. I'd pray
Yeah.
to God and I'd say, "Show me a sign." I'd get this
Yeah.
big crazy sign. I'd be like, "Oh, no, 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 no. You're right, but I can't listen." You know?
Right.
Yeah, and of course, there's like nervous system stuff that's going on in there, and there's like many times manipulation that is telling us that we're the crazy ones, or that they
Hmm.
really do love us and they really are caring, because many times they think that's the truth.
Right.
And right, but the intuition can be trained. So if you've been in an abusive dynamic, or whether it's, no matter who it's been with, or maybe even not, if you're second guessing your intuition, like, the way that I've been able to train myself and trust myself for bigger situations
Hmm.
has been these tiny little nuances of like, oh, I trust my intuition and look, I was right. Or, oh, I didn't listen. Look, I was right, but I didn't listen. That's okay. You know, try to listen next time. And
So
it's a
true.
powerful gift.
I know. And we all have it. So
Yeah.
hone in on it.
Yeah. I think my downfall was, instead of listening to the intuition, like I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, that's probably right, but I'm fascinated. I'm going to lean in.
Yes.
I'm going to not listen and see what happens here.
Buckle up.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Exactly. Oh, well, Raquel, I'd love to open the floor here. If there's anything that you would love to express that we haven't gotten to, it's your time.
Gosh, I think I mean, I could talk with you for hours off of this, offline for sure. But no, I just think just being authentic and transparent. So all good key things.
Beautiful. Well, I guess the last thing is, where can everyone find you, your practice?
Yeah, so I'm located in Michigan, Birmingham, Michigan, and it's Our Skin Aesthetics by Raquel. And we're about 25 minutes north of Detroit in a beautiful suburb. And you can find me on Instagram, Our Skin Aesthetics. Our website is ourskin.net, and then my personal one is Our Skin Admission. So, um, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, beautiful. And that will all be in the show notes, of course. And for those listening, it's the letter R, not a word spelled out, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good point.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Raquel, for being here and all that you shared and all that you do.
Thank you for having me. And I wish you a really beautiful, blessed day.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone who tuned in to this episode of Her Drive. As always, I encourage you to share this episode along to anyone who you believe whose heart would be touched and head filled with beautiful, inspirational information. And we encourage you to leave a review. It takes just a minute on no matter what platform you are listening to this on, and it shows others that this podcast is worthy of their valuable time as well. So see you all in the future. Thanks for listening.